Hey everybody, it's Viktor here, and as you can tell, it's time for an opening move guide for Byzantium. And welcome to the Balkans. As you can tell, well, Byzantium in 1444, not exactly the best of times for them. They've been pushed and beaten back by the Ottomans. They're pretty much not going to exist, and historically, in 10 years, they no longer exist. But, since we're players and this is a game you can be a little ahistorical, we're going to go ahead and do what the Purple Phoenix ought to have done. Namely, been reborn out of the fires of the Ottoman Empire while we burn it to the ground. So I will say before we get started that this guide is heavily influenced by first Budget Monk and second Ludia Historia. Who decided to do this tactic first, I don't really care. These are simply the people that motivated me and made me go and look for an easier way to do exactly what they were doing, and I found a few things that make it slightly easier for me. But I'm also going to cover a second option than what theirs does, because theirs will usually work every time, but some people's skill set are not that high. So I will cover the two situations that you might find and move forward. But lastly, they both used an exploit in one form or another, either cheese or blatant exploit in my opinion. I don't use exploits, so I try and make guides that do not contain any, just because I know a lot of you don't like using them either. But let's get started. First, take your navy, merge them together, because two light ships on their own, not going to make any kind of difference. Hire an admiral, doesn't really matter what their stats are, it's better than not having an admiral. And move your infantry, or the rest of this army here, to Athens. This fort is by far one of the most useless forts you'll ever have in EU4. I used to think it was similar to the one in Ireland, but at least with Ireland, if you lose a fight, they cannot take your capital. Down here, if you are actually needing this fort in Moria, it means you've probably already lost Constantinople and it's just time to restart, because you're not going to win that. So go ahead and delete it. It's not worth the ducat, or even half a ducat if it's not maintained, to maintain it, because it really does nothing for you. Now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and talk about the estates. Go ahead and summon the Diet first, because you'll get different missions if you do the privileges first. Because, namely, this one will usually be have no loans, but you are going to be in massive debt. The nobles can go a lot of different ways, but if you get one that says take Gallipoli, or take Adairn, or whatever it happens to be, anything with the Ottoman Empire, do not take that Diet mission. The reason why is the Ottomans will always treat it as if you are a bigger threat than you want them to think of you. And that means they won't turn off their forts, or at least one of their forts will not be turned off. Which is obviously a problem for you, because you need to get them down as quickly as possible. Taking out Arda here, that's perfectly fine. However, do not do anything with the Ottomans. And that way this will work. And I am saying this because I've done this about 80 times to practice. Every time I took the Ottoman Diet missions, this did not work. So let's go ahead and move on. As I said, no exploit, so I'm seizing the land now. If you want a crown land exploit, it's above. Now I'm going to go ahead and do primacy of the nobility and supremacy over the crown. Religious state, monopoly on wine, because you need money. You need to give them monopolies, because you need the money. And then expansion is zealotry. I've been told by a couple of people that this is not working. Whether that is because they are pre-Leviathan or using a patch pre-Leviathan or not, I don't know. However, it is working for me in about 15 different countries I've checked. So if you are post-Leviathan or in 1.3, 1.3, or 4, and it is not working, let me know so I'm at least aware of where it is working and where it is not. But it works with Byzantium, go ahead and take it. Burghers, land of commerce, you need the money. You need the money, and you want the prestige. Regardless of what your mission is, because sometimes it'll say get prestige, you want the prestige because of all the bonuses it gives. For those of you who are not aware of what bonuses it gives, please read it. You will get a lot of bonuses or debuffs depending on what your prestige level is at. This is why all YouTubers and people that play this game or make videos make sure they have capped prestige, because it makes it so much easier to play the game. Now that this is set up, focus on military points, because they will beat you there, but if you focus, you're only going to be 1 point behind per month, which means you should not be that far behind them. And letting them have Tech 4 before you is pretty bad. Check to see if you have a morale of armies or a discipline guy. Morale is better early game, but discipline can be helpful. Not because you're hiring them now, but so you are aware if you need to hire them in the future, because having these guys can make this war substantially easier. That said, don't cycle through for them, because as we all know, your luck is going to be terrible, and you're going to get into even more debt that you cannot afford looking for the right advisor. So don't bother. Now it's time to build up your forces, and just like in the other ones, build 2 carracks, 4 galleys. And I know people are going to say, why carracks? They're not good. Galleys will beat them. You're building them to siege down forts. You're not building them for combat. They're useful in combat, but you're not building them for combat. And lastly, build 2 infantry and 2 cavalry. I also know there's going to be people that tell me that cavalry is bad because they heard from Marumba years ago that cavalry is bad. What he actually said was cavalry is usually not economical, which is a very different thing, and I get into this argument all the time. You're paying 2.5 times as much, but you're not getting a twice as good unit. The thing is that this only applies when you're going to survive regardless of the battle. In this situation, if you lose these battles against the Ottomans, you're probably not going to survive. So get the cavalry together. It'll help you win those fights so you can beat the Ottomans a little bit easier. Because you are going to try and have the same number of cavalry, but out combat with them, so you can flank them and break them that way. So do not be afraid to get the cavalry. It will work. And with that, you're effectively ready to unpause. You just need to improve relations with first Albania, and then with the Knights. And then that's it. It's time to go. So I'm going to crank up the speed. And what you're waiting for is the 11th of December. The reason why is Epirus, they will try and get an alliance with somebody near you. And while they can always get an alliance before then, they have a much higher likelihood of getting that alliance on December 12th than they do with any other date. I usually see them get an alliance between the 12th and the 18th of December, far more likely than I see them before that. If they don't get one, great. You can get a core back, and depending on the mission, you even may get a claim. And sometimes you can even get an event, which gives you a free core over here. So even better. Now, I know that some people tell you to go ahead and vassalize them, because the Navy is useful. The problem is that while the Navy would be useful, it's also going to be extremely disloyal, which means they're not going to help you do anything. So realistically, you go ahead and fight their Navy. Not to actually sink their Navy, but because A, you're hoping to get a trait on your Admiral, which can be very useful, but B, for the simple reason that you could try and capture ships, and even one galley that actually you capture is going to be more useful than their entire Navy that doesn't do anything. So be sure to just go ahead and grab it. Now, as you can see, I'm not fighting anybody else, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off my maintenance. Just move 1 or 2 guys in, just because then it won't stop. And I have no reason to actually be continuing to maintain my army. During this war, go ahead and build a spy network on Aragon to try and get a claim on Naples when these guys fall, because then you'll be in range. Now, while I'm waiting for this to be done, I'm going to go ahead and cover who Epirus could have a habit of allying. In the 70, 80 runs that I've done to make sure I know what I'm talking about here, they have allied Ragusa, Albania, the Knights, and Cyprus, more often than not when they actually get an ally. And then in 2 runs, they've allied Venice and 1 Genoa. If they ally either of these guys, they are going to have too big of an alliance block for you to be bothering with. Just move on, come back at Epirus when you're able to take on either one of them. If it comes to the Knights, it'll just make the Knights more irritated at you, which means you have to improve relations longer, but you can still do it. Same with Albania. When it comes to Ragusa, just drop troops on them, blockade them, they'll peace out. Same with Cyprus. So nothing too dangerous. But obviously, with the Knights in Cyprus, they actually have fleets that you might need to be wary of, as long as they're with Epirus fleets. So if that happens, Be careful, but you don't need to panic. Just be sure you move out when you are in a good situation, and you can drop your troops and bail back if you need to, or come over and blockade them quickly and knock them immediately out of the war. Don't try and occupy any of these guys, well, either of these guys, because they have an actual fort, which means you're going to have to siege them for a lot longer, and on top of that, with a lot more men. Once this war is over, let the battle commence. Capture as many of their fleet as you can, and then peace out. Unfortunately, it looks like they didn't capture anything, but it is what it is. And I fortunately lost a ship. It's a galley, but I don't see that as the end of the world. I'm going to pull back from Albania and peace out, and now I'm simply waiting for my fleet and army to be done. So while I am doing this, I'm going to cover what I meant by the two situations that could happen. The two things that you will end up seeing happen are either the Ottomans remain at peace or they go to war. Which that happens to be is going to depend entirely on, well, the events that happen. They can choose to go war over here with Dulkadir, they can go after Ramazan, they can go after Kandar, they can go after a lot of people. But yeah, you really don't need to worry about it. Looks like Naples has already gotten their independence, so no need to have this anymore. Once I have the alliance with Albania and the Knights, my focus then shifts to a third alliance, which is Circassia. The reason why you get Circassia as an alliance is not because they're going to be useful in your war, but simply because you're going to blockade the strait, but if you look, they can always walk around. If you get Circassia as an ally, however, and get their opinion above 100, they will not give the Ottomans military access. And the Ottomans, while they can go this way, won't seem to do that. They will rather try a naval invasion against you than actually walk around and go the long way. So it looks like I got lucky and they did not raid my coast too much. And there we go. So now I have my army ready to go, my navy's finishing building, and if you have them remain at peace, you're going to drop it and you're going to have to fight their armies. If they go to war, what happens is, even with the Crimeans falling as their vassal, which happens when this guy dies, or has a chance of happening when that guy dies, they get claims on Theodoro and Genoa, and with Theodoro they go to war. And while Crimea goes down to Theodoro and starts punching them, they are usually allied to Trebizond, which means all of the Ottoman armies go to Trebizond to siege it out. So the Balkans are empty. So you can simply walk through, occupy everything, and be done. All you do is wait until they're out of that war. And you can do the exact same tactics I'm going to show you. So once I am ready, I go ahead and turn on my maintenance to get my guys actually getting their morale up. I'm going to take out a bunch of loans, hire the mercenaries, and you hire whatever is the best general you can find that you can actually hire. I mean that because the Novgorod Company, Morlocks, these guys, some of them are not actually in range of you. Why they're appearing, I don't know, but just actually look for them. It looks like Strictora, however you pronounce this, is my best bet in terms of a general. So I'm going to hire him. I'm going to hire the Free Company. I'm going to hire somebody else. It doesn't really matter who. It just has to be somebody. Because if you look, they're all the same size. All of them are 3 infantry, and then there's one that might have a cavalry. Just go ahead and hire whatever is cheaper, or whatever will be there quicker, whichever is your preference. You're honestly going to be waiting a bit for the Free Company to get their morale up because it takes longer. And then you're just getting everything in order. Move all of your ships to Corinth. Move all of your armies to Corinth. And then once you have your armies in Corinth, link them all to your army. Now that they're all linked, take your main army and break off 2,000 guys. These 2,000 guys are going to likely be sacrificial lambs, so do not expect to get them back. And now it's simply waiting. You're waiting until you feel like your army is prepared. They have their morale up, they are at war or at peace. I will say, if they actually go to war over here, you don't need the mercenaries. You're not fighting anything. If they get Crimea, you'll be fighting Crimea in that case, but honestly, you can handle Crimea with just the free company. You don't need anything else. You might even be able to beat them without even the free company. So don't be afraid of that happening. Now that I feel like my armies have moraled up enough and reinforced enough, it's going to take them 6 days to march to Athens. So I'm going to wait until I can get them to arrive on the 1st. That way they will arrive on the 1st, and then these 2,000, I'm going to have them arrive in the Aegean Sea on the 1st as well. They take 3 days, and there we go. They should arrive exactly on the 1st. The reason why is this. The Ottomans don't expect a war. So they've mothballed their Salonik fort, they've mothballed their Kocaeli fort, and they've mothballed Gallipoli. The reason why they will mothball Gallipoli is because A, you do not have any troops in Constantinople, no navy in the Aegean Sea, Sea of Marmara, or the Gulf of Varna. But B, you also didn't take any of those missions where you have to jump the Ottomans. So they see you as zero threat. If you take those missions, Gallipoli will be turned on, and you won't be able to do this. So don't take those missions. I mean it. Because this makes it significantly easier to beat them. Because you make it into a cage match. Now, once you're able to actually make it to the Aegean Sea on the 1st, just go straight to Constantinople. You don't need to wait. Now, when the navy here arrives, you are going to immediately pause. You are going to declare war. You're going to call your allies in, make Salonik or whatever else your war goal, and declare the war. Before you unpause, you're going to split this, move one there, and you're going to take out this navy. It won't take long. Now you are trying to get across this channel, and yeah, it'll take longer than it will take to get to Gallipoli. Looks like by 9 days. While you're waiting for that, you take this army and you move them towards Salonik, but be careful and keep an eye on these guys. Once they hit Terhalia, there is a bug or something going on where when you go from friendly territory to enemy territory, and it is within a fort of control of a zone of control of a fort, they will stop moving. Even if you tell them to go straight to that fort, they will stop moving. I don't know why it's happening, but you will suddenly find your army just chilling. Meaning they're going to keep getting troops here. So make sure you're keeping an eye on it, and the moment they get there and stop moving, you make them move again. So I'm going to go ahead and unpause. Now hopefully, the guy here in Kocaeli will make it there in time. The moment he does, go ahead and blast a hole in the fort and assault. Yeah, you still assault even though there's 0. You still pay that 50 military points to blast a hole in the wall, because it is worth it. And the same with Kocaeli. Because in a single day, they're suddenly down. Go ahead and scorch the earth. And you should win this fight if you are quick enough. Unfortunately, I did not pause it immediately. You'd be able to dive your navy in, grab this guy, come back out and fight that battle. And now that you win that fight, you dive in and grab this guy, put him on the ships, and sail away. And now they can't touch him either. And ta-da, you potentially have just saved your 2,000 sacrificial lambs from the slaughter of the Ottomans. When it comes to Salonik over here, sail out, bombard, take your main troops, find whatever non-free company you want to use this with. I believe this is the actual general, so I'm going to disconnect him. Move the rest of my army back. And now I'll only have this mercenary group here to actually do anything. I'm going to assault. Now, he won't actually be able to take the fort on his own in terms of just waiting for the siege to be done. But with that, he should be able to knock these guys out, which means I can just move my guys back. And only he will take the massive morale damage you get by assaulting a fort. Now if you notice, all of a sudden, they're not even going to be sieging Gallipoli at this point. They will back off and try and engage somewhere else. At this point, simply make sure you reattach all your guys. Have a solid front line, so if you have a lot of casualties here, condense them all into one solid unit. And start moving. The idea here is you're going to try and jump Constantinople before they get massive morale advantages. Obviously, I forgot to turn on the defensive buff here, but it's not absolutely necessary. You can choose to either let them stack on you, your allies, or you can just fight them on your own. I'm going to go ahead and just dive in on them. You can use this 1,000 guys here as a reinforcement to increase your morale a bit. And that's really what you're trying to do. You're just trying to beat them. Hopefully, you'll stack wipe them as I'm trying to do here. Obviously, it's going to be a little based on luck, on your general stats, etc. So, with this, you're in a cage match. They can't get to you. You can absolutely wreck them. If they move their troops over here, you just occupy all this without a fight. That's it. And then moving troops over here, that happens in about 1 out of every 3 tries I've done this with. So while it doesn't happen all the time, it's pretty common. So if you cannot win these fights, see if you can get that to happen. Beyond that, I'm going to go ahead and pause this recording at this point, finish this war, and show you what to do after the war is done. I'll see you guys then. And welcome back, everybody. So I'm not going to continue playing this war because, again, this is like the 80th time I've had to do this to the Ottomans, so it's kind of lost its glory here. But as you can tell from the other ones, the other guides that is, you're basically trying to take this kind of land. Because I called them an unpromised land, Albania wants Ohri. Here's one I can get that'll still border Serbia is over here, Kostendil. So go ahead and take that one. And you have a choice. The way that it is currently working before Leviathan was, if you didn't give them any land and you promised them land, they wouldn't trust you. And they wouldn't come in with a promise of land for 30 years. And this is still working as it did then. The difference here, however, is you can first buy that trust back a lot faster than you did before, which means you can keep that alliance even though you didn't actually live up to it. I haven't been at war for very long, and I haven't had this alliance for very long, but I'm already up to 5 favors, so I can easily buy some of that trust back if I actually wanted to maintain these 2 alliances. The thing is that these 2 alliances are not going to be that worthwhile after this war. They're just not going to. So you have a choice. You can either give them the land, which takes a whopping 17, I believe, war score, which not very much. It'll maintain your respect from everybody else. They'll still come in on a promise of land, etc., etc. Or you can just choose not to give it to them, which just means you just need favors to call people into war, and right now it is vastly easier to get favors than it ever was before. The normal alliance favors still kind of trickle in as they used to, but you can still put a diplomat on it to accelerate that, so you'll get 10 favors with even larger countries incredibly quickly, because not honoring the promise of land doesn't hurt your diplo reputation, and that's really what causes favors to come in at a faster rate than anything else. So it doesn't matter. Once this war is done, what the Ottomans will usually do is warn you, which means you'll be able to attack, the way warnings work, anybody that they border, and they will come in as a defensive alliance without calling in their allies. So you get to punch Ottomans over and over again, taking either a little bit of land, because you'll be paying more aggressive expansion than simply taking cores, but you can take a lot of money. After this peace deal, they will go down to about 750. But count the number of people you can go to war with that actually share a border. You have Serbia, which, if you look at Serbia, will usually have a guarantee by the Ottomans, because, well, they're afraid of Hungary. But even if this isn't there, they will have a guarantee by Albania for some reason, which means you can secure those 2, as well as the alliance with Bosnia, securing most of the rest of the Balkans. Naples does not count, it's too far away, it doesn't go over a water crossing like this, but it will go over to Venice, and it will go over to Genoa. So the moment Genoa is not in the HRE, you can go ahead and jump them if you want. or you can go after Venice when their allies won't help them. But also, it'll include Kandar. Because, yeah, you are in range to fabricate a claim over here, which, if you're counting, gives you 4 separate times you can punch the Ottomans for about 750 ducats, which should put them either close to or into bankruptcy pretty much all the time. And if you let this war go for as long as it's going to go, they will end up with about 20 war exhaustion, and you can keep driving that up. Only then, once all that's done and you have them really in pain, you can then finish taking the rest of your cores and Bulgaria's cores up here, and you will eventually Balkanize the Ottoman Turks in Anatolia. Because if you look, there's cores everywhere. And after they bankrupt out with 20 war exhaustion, they will Balkanize. And you'll have little cores and little countries all over Anatolia for easy conquering, with the Ottomans just up here in the corner as an easy vassal. But then you'll have to deal with, of course, what happens when the Mamluks has nobody to check them. So you're going to have a little bit more of an interesting mid-game than you will an early game, because if either of these two events happen, whether you fight them or not, because they move their armies away, you can do all of these things to them, because even if they come in with the Kandar, you'll piece them out first, which means it's just you and Kandar in a cage match, and that's not exactly a difficult thing to win. But with that, you guys should have a very strong start with a ton of money, with pretty much the Balkans in your grasp, and ready to continue punching in any direction you want without any real difficulty. If you guys like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing more nation guides. If you guys are having difficulty with any specific country, or if you want me to do a guide on a particular country or on a particular mechanic of the game, whether it's trade, aggressive expansion, whatever it happens to be, let me know. I have no problem explaining how I do these things to pretty much play the game. But thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.